Hello, welcome to Jared Hood Sports. Like I always say, I'm inconsistent with it, but have some time on my hands, so let's do one. If you're new, welcome. Thanks for watching. If you watched before and you can hear often, then thank you as well. Jared Hood Sports on YouTube. Like, subscribe, be a friend, tell a friend, share. Um, Gonna get right into it. So football camps are opening this week. So I don't know. I've had the itch to talk about it. I think the biggest thing in the NFL during the offseason, I'll talk a little college football too, but the biggest thing in the NFL this offseason was the running backs, right? I think the running back situation has been a hot topic over at least the last couple of weeks, I'd say. Um, I know it stems off Barkley is talking, I know he's the latest thing he said is he's talking about holding out, which I'll get into that in a second. Overall, the issue is the cap. The cap size is just it's broken down into different pieces than it ever was before. And the way teams get yards, I also think analytics, quote unquote, has a big piece of this as well. They start to equate those things together, and at the end of the day, on top of it, the best way I can always describe it, and the Eagles have just did it. I know I'm an Eagles fan, so it sounds whatever. But Miles Sanders just signed a $7.5 million contract per year, so he's going to get 7.5 this year. The Eagles' whole running back room is just under six or just over $6 million, and that's four guys. Only three of them or four or five guys, but I think it's five guys. Three of them are only or four of them are only going to make the roster. So at the end of the day, they're paying how many more guys less money, and will they get the same production? Miles Sanders does some pop things. He is really good. He became a really great blocker. I thought there was a lot of big things during schemes. Especially over the last 2 years with Jalen, where they were able to just, fake the handoff to him, and he was able to stay in the backfield or take a hit even on the options, quote unquote. But just he became way different of a running back since the first day he was there with the Eagles, and he became a great running back. Actually, I think he's one of the better running backs in the league, and that's why he got the money, right? But at the end of the day, like you look at Dalvin Cook, who has been phenomenal from the time he started to, I think it's the last 5 years or 4 years he's had over 1,000 yards. One of those years he's had, I think, 10 or 11 touchdowns. He's had over 5 or 6 touchdowns every year. He catches the ball out of the backfield. He's been a great blocker. He's the whole thing. I mean, he's somebody who once he hit the market, you would be like, all right, well, he's the guy. You gotta get this guy. You gotta pay him. But you don't. Who knows what the market for a great running back like him is? Because guys like Barkley are getting franchise tag. Henry I know has a good deal, but at the end of the day, yeah. Look, the Le'Veon Bell situation. I was very in support of Le'Veon Bell when he did the thing in Pittsburgh in 2018 or 2019 when he was like, "Hey, you're gonna franchise tag me again. I'm not playing for you." I thought that was actually the right move, and they had until like week 13 that year or whatever. It's basically like almost Thanksgiving if it wasn't like that week. I forget. It was around then, and he just never signed it, and he never showed up, never played a game. It didn't help either side, right? He lost money, and so he was wrong. I was wrong, right? I was supporting him. I thought this was the right thing to do. He was wrong, but the Steelers also, I mean, they've only been in the playoffs once since then. They've only had one 10 plus win season since then. I know that other things have happened, right? Ben got older and retired. AB, who can predict the AB situation? I understand there's other stuff that go into it, but the last time that the Steelers were in the AFC Championship with a chance to win was when Le'Veon Bell was healthy. So I was like, hey, they go by him. I mean, the numbers were there at the time. He was the catalyst to why they were such a good offense. I completely thought that, and I was like, hey, sit out, show them. You know what I mean? But he did show them. I will give him that, but he also hurt himself in the long run just as much. So I'm not saying Barkley shouldn't hold out, but it didn't really work out for him or the team last time. It just kind of hurt everybody. So And I think I mean not AB. I'm sorry. I think Le'Veon Bell. You'd have to ask him this, but I know a lot of people would probably think, man, if I hurt my teammates and I hurt myself, why wouldn't I just I should have just played. It's unfortunate, and if he would have gotten hurt, he and never. I understand the whole thing. I get it, but um, like I said, if you break down the salary cap into numbers, into the pieces of the pie that it is, it just to get a running back at the numbers that these guys deserve, by the way, the numbers that these guys should get paid well, right? Like Derrick Henry is a monster. We've never seen anything like it. He's a beast. He's a freak. Give him that, But if you can get, I don't know, 150 less yards, 200 less yards, and two less touchdowns a season, the Titans that means a lot, but to the Eagles did it mean a lot, and I think that's where they look at the Miles Sanders thing. I will say to the Giants, it does mean a lot. I'll get into quarterbacks here because I know that's low hanging fruit, so it's going to give me a good thing to talk about here next. But and when I do, I'll talk about Daniel Jones, and we'll get more into Barkley himself. But the way I don't know a good solution to fix the running back situation. The only thing I can say is maybe, and listen, if the owners have no incentive to do this, but you got to get the NFLPA and you got to get the owners to work together, and you got to figure something out in the CBA, which is way too far down the road, by the way. Like most of these running backs are going to be retired before the CBA comes up, so I don't know the real solution for these guys. But the way to think outside the box is do other things like the old back in the day where they were trying to do the quarterback club, make like a quarterback salary cap. I know that's turned into a huge topic of conversation. I like that. I think that's I think that's a logical way. I don't have a good answer, so I'm open to hearing ideas like that. If you got one, shoot it to me because I'm down to hear it. I like going down those rabbit holes, but like I said, I don't have my personal solution to it. I do like if Barkley sits out, like I get it, and do you, and he will and should have the support of the rest of the players involved with that. But at the end of the day, the example we have, and it's only one, it's a small sample size, but the example we have, not great. Low hanging fruit quarterbacks, right? So let me talk quick because I am going to get into closer to the season teams I like, players I like, defenses I like. All I mean, we're going to go into it all, but I just think that an easy thing to talk about right now, proven through July, getting in right into to camp, is the quarterbacks, right? There's a lot of huge quarterback storylines, and I think. No particular order, but like Trey Lance, right? I mean, what's going to happen with him with the Niners? If you hear them talk about Sam Darnold when they're giving him reps, and they love it, right? So I mean, Shanahan make it another, great pie out of nothing. But if Purdy comes back, he's probably the guy. He only lost one game, and the game he lost, he was hurt. Different conversation for a different day. He got hurt in that game, but either way he was undefeated until then. He had a great season. He did everything that you would expect. Jimmy G never got to take the reins back over because of how good he was, even though Jimmy G never got healthy either. Would have he taken the reins over? I don't know because of how good he was playing. So the thing with Trey Lance that I'm always side-eyeing is they gave up so much for that pick to get the number 2 overall pick. And even, I mean, I'm more like, hey, I think Shanahan's a great coach. I'll trust the process with that. So I was like, weird, but go for it. Like, hey, if you're going to go all in, if you like a guy, a quarterback's the one to do it for. We're only a couple years in, and it really just, I mean, the thing that's concerning is like when you hear them say that Sam Darnold's getting first team reps. That's where I'm looking at it like, all right, what's going on there? Do they not like Trey Lance? Or are they just trying to get Sam Darnold prepared just in case? I don't know. They claim Brock Purdy could be back for week 1. I mean, if he's not back until like the second to last week till camp, is it realistic that you want him to play week 1 anyways? Like just with that little, I don't know. I'm not the guy for that. So just Trey Lance is a storyline that I think is something to watch because as I go further down this list, I mean, the next guy like Jordan Love, about to get his opportunity. But if it doesn't work out for the Packers, or the Packers are a team that would they go after something like him, and I'm not just saying the Packers are just an example. I'm not even saying the Packers would do that. It's just one of those like, listen, I think Justin Fields is going to be good, but what if he struggles? Or would you go after a Trey Lance instead of going for the top quarterback next year? Probably not. You'd probably go for a top quarterback next year if you're the number one, number two, number three pick. But I don't. I just think it's fascinating. Is Trey Lance just going to be a bust? Is it just going to be he never gets to see the field and we're never going to know and no teams? I just to me someone's got to take a chance on him right at some point. I think Gino is going to be fine, but what if he doesn't work out? Does a team again? I just theories. I don't know. I think he's an interesting storyline to watch, though. The whole Niners quarterback situation in general, I think, is a pretty interesting situation to watch because Brock Purdy. They have three guys that are. I don't know if Darnold's good in that to them, then they could be pretty good. Um, Speaking of Jordan Love, the reason I wanted to just bring him up, I just think he's also an interesting storyline. I think the Packers have really good offense. Like I like LaFleur. I think was great. I thought that him and Rodgers found a pretty cool connection click there over the last year. I thought last year was very without top end wide receiver and they really they had to figure it out and I thought they did. Not obviously to the point that they were looking for or anybody but and I know that overall they had to separate, but I just felt like there was flashes there, and I think his offensive mindset with a guy who's fully bought into his system, that's just going to be like, hey, give me everything you got, and I'll do it. Not saying Rodgers wasn't like that, but Rodgers is so good that he can just go off the hip. He doesn't need you to guide him. He can figure it out on his own. Just two separate landscapes with two different quarterbacks. So that's why I'm going to see Jordan Love. Because last year we did see, I'm an Eagles fan. In Philadelphia, he had some flashes there for sure. So I'm excited to see what happens there. Keeping in his division, Justin Fields. Listen, I think Fields is a good quarterback. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. I thought he was good in college. I'd have taken him pretty high in that draft. Last year, he ran way more than you want a quarterback to run. There's no way around it. And it was like heavy version of Jalen Hurts the year before because Jalen had a team that I think it was when they got to the playoffs. Defense played pretty well that year as well. Better, had a better situation. Jalen, obviously, it was his second year, by the way, in the league, which is his first full year starting. But just whole thing with Fields, I think he turns into more of the standard quarterback that you think. But the thing that you don't want to take away is how good of a runner he is. And I always thought that as well. Like, it's a very Lamar Jackson situation to me. Don't take that aspect away, but add, and which Lamar and him both can do, add the passing in. I think Lamar's proven that too, by the way. But the thing with Fields is he's going to have to show that. And this is kind of a prove it year for that entire organization because he's the whole. I mean, it's a lot. It's new everything. It's new GM, new coaches, all that stuff over the last just recently. So if you don't get to it this year, then they're all going to start getting rid of the players so that they can stick around. And he's going to be probably the first one that they get rid of. Can he take the Josh Allen, the Jalen Hurts leap, right? That I guess that would be like the question that everybody would be looking for this year. Like I said, I believe he can. I believe he will. But he's got to do it. You got the NFL is a do it or don't league, and now's the time. Speaking of put up or shut up, Russell Wilson. I was a big fan of Russell Wilson when he was in Seattle. I thought he was a really good quarterback. Last year was very odd, very hard to watch. Couldn't expect it to go that bad at times. Not saying it's totally his fault. Again, I'm just talking about quarterbacks at this moment, so there's so much context around it that I'm not even adding. But this is a year that all right. He has Sean Payton. I like their weapons. I think. I mean, I liked them last year too, though, right? Um, I think Sean Payton's a really great offensive mind, and he takes water and makes it into wine all the time, right? So just I think that Russ. I don't want to say he needed a year like that, but like a year like that might do him wonders. A year like that's not good for anybody. I'm not so like needed is not the word I should have said there, but a year like that I think is gonna do. All right, now he's gonna lock down, no distractions, focus. We're getting it done. Um, and he has the right people around him in that organization now, head coach wise, to do that. Skeptical. The thing I think I would be concerned about is I don't know much about their offensive line. Not saying they're bad, I just don't know much about their offensive line. And I think that last year at times injuries were the reason, but they struggled. Jimmy G, I got question marks everywhere on that. He wins all the time, right? So like, is it new team same Jimmy G? Like, do you still get that? He's back with his old offense coordinator, now head coach for the Raiders, McDaniels. I mean, you have Adams, right? Like, come on, you should be all right with that. I like Jimmy G. I think he's a good quarterback. He missed the play in the Super Bowl, and it's always going to be the thing that I think haunts him and is going to just be talked about for the rest of his career. But if you take that away, he's usually been the good enough guy to do what you have to do. And he was the best step in for Tom Brady ever, right? So like that's a pretty big deal on top of it, and he's still rolling. When he's in there, his team still have been winning. Only one team since then, but that organization did really well when he was at the helm. Tannehill, I'm curious about Ryan Tannehill. I used to really like Ryan Tannehill. I'm not saying I don't like him anymore, but like his decisions in really big moments over the last 3 years have just been really hard to swallow. I mean, to the point where, as somebody who's a fan and defended him, is just like, I don't even know what to say anymore. I think getting Nuke is a good thing for him. Obviously, I mean, getting a top end guy who's had well over 1,000 yards every single year and when healthy, I think he can go off for well more than 1,000 yards. Um, Obviously, you have Henry, like I said. I think they have a really good offensive line. Their organization is well run. Their defense is great. So this is just one of those things that are they just missing a quarterback to get them over that little hill that they've been stuck on now. It feels like for a while, but like they're there. Like it are they. Sometimes it feels like they're falling backwards, but there's so many signs of them just getting close to it. Um, tough, tough conference, tough division, but I think Tannehill can be the guy. Just can't have the decisions he's made in big moments like he did. And I think if he has another year with just doomed in big moments, then I don't think you can go forward with him as your quarterback, which I don't think they would. Um, Kyler's not coming back till the second half of the season, but I do believe that he's somebody that you gotta. I mean, this year, next year, that's it. That's all he's got. Um, Derek Carr going to New Orleans. How about that? I think that's going to be an interesting situation. Uh, their offense wasn't as I don't know, sparkly. I don't know the good word to use. I know that Thomas hasn't played a whole lot, and Kamara's hit or miss or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, is Derek Carr the guy that's going to rejuvenate them into the right direction? I think that division's up for grabs. I know Baker and Tampa. That's interesting, right? Too. I just think the division's up for grabs. So, you got the rookies as well. I haven't really talked about them. Probably not going to Carolina and then Texans. Mac up in New England. I think that's a big storyline as well. I mean, what is he going to do, right? Like, where do you go? Think this year or next year is when they have to make the decision on him. So, like, a lot on the line for just him particularly. And if he doesn't do well, uh, Mac's is he a Baker Mayfield kind of guy, or is he even like a step below that? I don't know. I think he could be above that as well. He's shown a little bit of everything. Get him this year. Bill O'Brien being the offense coordinator, get him in the right system. I do believe do that and see what he does. I mean, clearly what he did in college, he was just fine. So, um, I don't really love talking about him just because of the whole situation. But Deshaun Watson, I mean, as if they start winning, the lights will get brighter. And when the lights get brighter, he's got a really rough attitude towards the situation. I don't think if the lights get too much brighter and he keeps that attitude, it's going to go too well. Just overall, I don't know. I could be way off. I could be wrong. I'm not like a future. I can't see the future like that. But it's just he has a really, like I said, rough attitude towards the situation. And if they win, lights are going to get bright. Keeping his division real quick. Kenny Pickett and Lamar Jackson. Listen, I think Lamar is really good. I mean, clearly MVP worthy. I think he takes a step forward passing this year. They are trying to, from everything I can gather, get him in that direction, not just with the players around him, but with the system put in place, with the plays, and opening things up too. They're going to still use, I would hope, his ability to move the ball in every other way other than just airing it out as far as possible. But I think adding that to the game and making him even more susceptible to throwing the 10 to 20 to 15, 10 to 15 to 20-yard passes. I think getting that added into the game even 5-10 more % just makes him that much more lethal. And Kenny Pickett, I like Pickett. I like Tomlin a lot too. So you combine two guys who I think put a lot of good work in, and strive for the right things when it comes football wise. I think the Steelers could be. I know I was talking about how since Bell wasn't there, I was kind of bringing some stats out that they weren't as good as they were, but I think they're back on the right pace and right direction, and the way to do that is getting your quarterback, your franchise guy. He's one of those guys that got to take his step year. This year and next year are the years that he's got to take that step, that leap, that Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts leap. Other fun storylines, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, come on, like going to a bigger city. Everyone says that it's not everyone. The stats would show last year was his statistically worst year, but he still had a great year overall. And I expect in New York, even with with the lights being as bright as they are, I think that I think the Jets, New England, Miami, and up in Buffalo, obviously, I think that division's gonna be fun, and I think that the Jets could be a team that do it. I do think people are down on them. There's a lot of people who are really high. There's a lot of people who are like, oh well, I think just getting overhyped. I think I'm somewhere in the middle on that because I think they can be really good, but the division's so good that I could see it going sideways. Um, Speaking of the people in that division, I mean, Tua, I don't think he has anything to prove, but I think people think he has a lot to prove. Jalen Hurts and Dak, I think they're also in that category where like people just doubt them for no reason. All good quarterbacks that I think are going to be just fine. Um, I don't know. Who am I not talking about? I mean, the guys that I love are just like, the Trevor Lawrences, the Joe Burrows, the Josh Allen's, Pat, obviously. Who doesn't love Pat Mahomes? Herbert. So I'm sure I'm missing people in there too, but a lot of fun quarterback storylines, and I think there's going to be a lot of good stuff between now and the NFL season start with quarterbacks, but just throughout the season, I think those are the things to watch. Um, and I'm sure we'll talk about a whole lot more. So moving on from the NFL, college football, quick. I think Auburn, UCLA, and Miami are all going to be better than what people are talking about. I think they all just take a step forward this year. Also, Notre Dame, USC, and Penn State, I think, are all going to be teams that are sleepers. Like, they are sleeping giants to me that are just all, and I know it's very chalk to talk about like teams like this, but Penn State's got a sophomore quarterback that, I mean, he can do it. Obviously, everyone knows about USC's situation and their quarterback coach. And Notre Dame got a transfer quarterback in there that I think could make things very interesting because they have such a great front seven on defense that I think their defense is just Notre Dame's defense is going to be really good this year. So I think it's those are three teams to watch out for. But the big four that everyone's obviously always keeping an eye on to very chalk is the Bama and Georgia and the Ohio State and Michigan. And the reason that, and I know it sounds cliche, and I know everyone's talking about these four teams like there's no chance for anybody else, but the reason is their defenses are just elite. Like Michigan's coaching staff and on defense, plus their talent is really good too. But Ohio State's talent is off the charts on defense. Plus, I mean, we all know about their offense and what they can do weapons wise. Come on, Georgia, everyone's talking about complacency. I think that is a real thing, but Kirby Smart coming from the Alabama tree, understanding, about the, as Nick Saban would call it, rat poison, their defense is so electric. Like, I mean, their defensive line is huge. I'm very excited to see what they do throughout the SEC this year. Also, Alabama. I think Alabama is going to be actually. I think Alabama's going to beat Georgia this year. Not, I like both. I really, really like both coaches, and both programs are just. I mean, how could you not just like drool over what they're doing? But I think Ohio State also has a chance. I think Ohio State and Bama could be the national championship this year. Um, both those defenses are just crazy good, and Ohio State's offense is. I think Ohio State probably has the best offense in the nation. But I'm excited for college football, and you always get your TCUs or somebody that's going to come out of nowhere, right? So I'm excited to see that aspect as well. Mid-season NBA tournament. Listen, the only real comments I have on it is they want it to be like Champions League, which is in the middle of the soccer tournament, or for us it's soccer, football over in Europe. It's over in the middle of most of their seasons over in Europe, and it takes basically the top team, the team that won the tournament play, and the team that won the table. And if that's the same team, then usually it's the next team that won the table. And there's a whole different assortment of ways you can get to the Champions League, but that's pretty much the simplest way to put it. But it's from various leagues, multiple different leagues. So it is literally the best teams from all these different leagues coming together to play the most popular sport in the world, and it's called Champions League, and it's hugely successful, and it's watched even here in America, and we have nothing to do with it. I mean, I watch it, and a lot of people do. But it's the biggest thing in Europe. So what the NBA is trying to do is have a Champions League tournament, Champions League style tournament, winner take all in the middle of their season. The thing is the Wizards and the Magic already play like 4 or 5 times a year, and they're not champions. They were two of the worst teams in the league last year. So if you're going to have them in a tournament, you're missing the whole point of what Champions League is if you're trying to do Champions League. And that's what it feels like. If it's not a money grab, if you actually are trying to make it about competition, and you miss the entire note. I don't think it's a good look. I think it will eventually get popular, and I think the thing to do is invite teams from Europe, invite the overseas teams, invite the a team, the teams from South America. There's leagues all over the world that play basketball, and honestly, at a high level, some of them. So, I know we get Luka and Giannis and all these guys from other countries. I mean, some of the best players in the NBA, most of the best players in the NBA are from overseas, and they're all developed in these leagues some way, shape, or form for the most part. And a lot of our young players, not as much anymore because you can get money in different ways here now, obviously, not just with college, but the other leagues that are run outside of right outside of high school that you can still get drafted out of. But point is it's out there, and I think the way to get the game to grow too across, right, because the NBA has money in most of those leagues as well. The way to get those leagues to grow is by inviting them, making them more popular across their own landscape, across the world, and here where you're holding the tournament. British Open, didn't get to watch much of it. I was on vacation until Friday, and then so I was following on my phone, and then Saturday. I ended up going to a concert, and Sunday I was kind of washed. So when I woke up, it was pretty much over. But I did get to, enjoy it, and I followed a little bit. But hopefully, if you're a golf fan, it's one of my favorite tournaments. So I'm kind of disappointed that I wasn't able to get on it this year as much as usual. But sounded fun and pretty cool. My man Messi, I'm a huge Messi fan. That was pretty cool. He came to America. He plays for Inter Miami now. They haven't won a game in a while. He comes in and scores the game winner in extra time because he's Messi. The Women's World Cup. U.S. women didn't dominate. I mean, they won like 3-0, but people were saying like 6-0, 5-0, 8-0. I saw some ridiculous scores. People thought they were going to win by. Listen, they won. Doesn't matter. I think they are going to just blow through pool play. But I think the competition, as we're going to see further when we get into the more tournament style past pool play, um, I think we're going to see a lot of really good competition, not just versus the USA, but just across the whole landscape. There's some good teams out there. Um, the MLB. The only thing I really have on the trade deadline, because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of things flying. I don't know if Ohtani gets traded. It's not. I'm not. I'm not saying he doesn't. I could see it happening. I could 110% see him getting traded. But everyone has a hard time putting a value on it. Nobody knows what to like put on. Like, do you trade everything for him and then he maybe leaves anyways? Do you trade everything for him? If you win the World Series, he's two players in one, and it turns out great. Even if he leaves, then whatever. Um, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. Should the Angels even trade him? The whole thing. I don't know the right thing, and I think in these situations, more times than not, organizations tend to hold everything close to the vest and just not pull the trigger. I do think if somebody runs in there, and this is the other side, I don't know if anybody's offered the crazy. A lot of things get thrown around. I don't know if any teams actually offered that crazy, crazy sweet deal that we all think you're going to have to throw out there for Ohtani. Maybe if somebody had, maybe they would have taken it by now. So that is my other thought: is that maybe teams are just as reluctant to set the market, because if you set the market for them and it's way too much, then you're going to look like a fool. And if you set the market for them and you set it at way too little, and somebody else comes in and gets them pretty much as a steal, then you look like a fool. And you don't also, if you're one of the teams that is actually interested in signing him, want to risk not even having a chance at him coming your way, or risk having another team that is in that opportunity. So it's so many layers and so many landscapes, and he's much more than just a baseball player too to some of these franchises. He's going to be looked at as a very big marketing tool. To me, as a fan, I just look at him as a baseball player, and I love watching him play baseball. But that goes into this just as much as the baseball aspect, unfortunately. So like I said, I don't think he gets traded. I think the Angels are going to try to bleed every cent they can out of him, even though it really starts to probably run dry after the deadline if you don't trade him, and he doesn't re-sign with you. But he's a money pit. He's helping you at the moment with that. Also, keep your eye out. I mean, we got about a week, just about a week left till the deadline. So, gonna be. I think a lot of things are gonna happen between now and then. The MLB gets pretty wild usually around 3 or 4 days before the deadline, but I think that this year is going to be just as wild as usual. Last thing, talk about some NASCAR drama. Two things with NASCAR drama. Denny Hamlin won the race. I think it was his 50th win. I think it was like his 11th or 12th win at Pocono. I got to see his first two wins at Pocono. He swept it his rookie year. My parents took me to both those races actually when I was like 15, 16. It was cool. Thing is the first time there was a car that wrecked, probably, I don't know, I want to say 30, 50 laps ago, whatever. Alex Bowman wrecked in front of him. I don't know what happened to Alex Bowman. He got loose, was wiggling a lot. The air definitely got taken out from under him because of Denny at some point, but Denny never touched him, and the air wouldn't have got taken out from under him if he didn't wiggle through the tunnel turn as it was. So I'm not going to put that incident on Denny in any way, shape, or form. I think it's ridiculous to do that. But I do understand why Alex Bowman might, his first initial reaction be like, Denny tried to wreck me because, like, they try to wreck each other all the time. The Larson situation, I didn't like how Larson handled it after the yellow, but I loved his interview afterwards. And my thing here is, I don't like how Denny handled that at all. Like, saying that I didn't touch it. I mean, Denny ran into the side of him. Like, I know he did give him, he gave him a lane. I don't know if he gave him a lane and a half, but he gave him a lane. But Larson wasn't given either. So I think it was just a racing thing at that moment. And then Larson bounced off the wall. And the thing I will say, and prove my point from last year, is I thought Ross tried to wreck after Denny put him in the wall last year. Like, I thought Ross was looking for the just, let me take a couple more cars out here and make Denny really look bad thing. I don't know. Maybe he just really actually lost control. I like Ross, so I'm not trying to bash him. But he's just a really good driver. Like, we've seen so many other instances past the skid off the wall. We've seen a lot of instances of him handling a car way better than that. Again, those cars are hard. Out of that fast, coming off a wall is not easy. I'm not saying he did it on purpose. It just felt like he didn't try to stop it. Let me put it that way. But Kyle Larson did. He handled it pretty well off the wall. I know he lost, 3 positions or 2 positions, whatever it was, and he had every right to be mad because Denny should have raced him, I think, for another 2 laps. If you're going to pull that move, I'd rather you pull it on the last lap. But it doesn't matter. It was a racing move. Kyle didn't give Denny as much room as Denny didn't give Kyle, right? So Denny came up on him way more. I will agree with that. But at the end of the day, Kyle could have also just ran in that lane. And I don't know, if Denny keeps going into them after that, like when they made contact, Denny clearly went the other way. If Denny kept going into him after there was no more room for Kyle, whole different conversation. Either way, it was a racing thing, but Kyle should have been mad. I don't like I said, after the yellow flag, he came running up on him. I think that it's kind of like, to me, it's like after it's hitting a player after they're out of bounds. Like, all right, everyone's slowing down. Everyone's like, that's not the time and place to do it. But how he handled his interview afterwards was really, really, really great, and I agree with him. At some point, you got to start racing people how they race you, and do it. So don't put him in the wall, but I mean, yeah, don't give him. He didn't give him anything, and so continue to do that, and do it even harder next time. I think Kyle might turn him, but I don't think he should. I will say that. I think they need to talk. And Kyle shouted out Denny's podcast on the post race interview. The thing I would do if I was Denny Hamlin is I would get Kyle on my podcast. They sounds like they're friends. I would talk about it. Denny should apologize, by the way, and he should apologize what he said after the race. And I think Kyle would probably apologize for being a little aggressive in his interview too, even though I like Kyle's interview. But at the end of the day, I think it would just be really good marketing for all of them in that podcast. And the last thing I'll say about the NASCAR drama, the yellow flag at the end of the race, the fans weren't mad that there was a yellow flag out. I think that, and I'm not trying to get on the commentator, so I'm going to go past that. I just think that people being like, oh man, the fan, like, you got to understand they have to throw the yellow. Yeah, no NASCAR fan in the history of watching NASCAR would ever be like, no, please let the cars go as fast as they can past a car that can't move. The thing is the car spun out and couldn't move before the leaders were out of the third turn coming to, like, they were still way away. I mean, at least a quarter mile, if not more, from the flag stand. The yellow flag could have been brought out before the white flag, and then you get the green, white checkered, and you get the finish that I think everybody goes to NASCAR races to see. That is the only real complaint I have with it. Like, of course, throw the yellow flag. He couldn't move the car. Nobody wants him to get run over in that situation. That's dangerous for him. It's dangerous for the other cars. Everyone agrees with that. But, like, do it properly and there was plenty of time, and it's just inconsistent. And the standard there, like the flag man, I wasn't at the race, but the flag man apparently had the yellow flag out. And I think that if he had enough awareness to do this, like, hey, let's get this right. He probably just wanted to see they just probably wanted to see the right finish as well, like on their own. Like, hey, I want to see them duke this out the right way. Like it just didn't end the way that. And NASCAR does everything they can to avoid that situation, and it felt like in that situation they did everything they could to not avoid it. Just throw it. Who cares? Who cares if he can get it restarted? Like I genuinely who cares if he got it restarted like that? Nobody would have been bothered by doing. Take precaution over what you did. Um, and the thing about it is, it'd be like, oh man, lesson learned. But like we're in 2023, there's been too many races that happened in the history of NASCAR for them to just be like, oh, let's get it right next time. Like, no, you should have gotten it right that time. And it's disappointing because NASCAR as the fan base has been showing back up to the track lately, and I think Pocono's been a place that really got shouted out all weekend. My parents got up there on Saturday for the Xfinity stuff. I went to a concert, but in the trucks, and they saw their stuff as well. But just the end of the day, like Pocono was getting shouted out because the infield was packed and it was sold out in the grandstands for Sunday, and so like a lot of great momentum. And then like, that's what you do to the fans. You know what I mean? It's just like, really? Like, but overall, I thought the drama on top of the rest of that, the Hamlin stuff, I think is gonna overshadow that and is gonna, be what takes precedence. So, been doing a long. This is a very long one, so I'm gonna probably get out of here. Thank you for watching. I'm sure I'll be putting more up. Jared Hood Sports. Find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Like, follow, share. Like, follow, subscribe, share. Sorry, I can't talk anymore. Be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you.